Coming up on Theater Talk.
Glengarry Glen Ross is a great play. How about this production?
This production is that it's actually an immersive theater production.
What?
Where they put you in the mood of the guys being fleeced on stage by charging $377 for a premium seat and $10 for a ginger ale at the bar, which I sadly now know firsthand. And
Elisabeth.
it is just, if you think of it as a meta production where the audience is fleeced like the guys in the play, I mean, it's just brilliant.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation. From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm producer Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
Michael, Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you.
It's 2013.
How exciting.
But before we move forward with gusto, we want to talk about the season that's just ending.
Indeed. Just after the holidays, we decided to rip down the mistletoe and take out the Christmas tree with the drama critics here in New York City, who have opinions about all the shows running on Broadway and some of the shows that didn't make it very long this season. Joining us.
Most of them.
Most of them, it's true. It's been kind of a dreary season, but there are a few highlights which we will get to. We are joined tonight by my colleague at the New York Post, Elisabeth Vincentelli. Welcome, Elisabeth.
Hello.
Scott Brown, a very funny, witty writer at New York Magazine. Welcome, Scott. And our old friend Charles Isherwood of the New York Times. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you.
You look like you've been through
old friend.
I was just saying,
I'm the senior member, I guess.
And veteran theater critic Charles Isherwood of the New York Times.
So he's old, he's witty, and I'm what?
Brilliant and insightful, and French. Welcome all. All right, let's start off with some of the good things, though, first of all. I really enjoyed, Elisabeth, the rather delightful and boisterous revival of The Mystery of Edwin Drood at the Roundabout Theater, Rupert Holmes's musical from the 80s. Did you have a good time at that?
Yes, I had a very good time. It's, as you said, it's very enjoyable. It's the right amount of kitsch, and it's a fun little romp. It's not going to destroy any of your brain cells.
Well, we should say that it's based on the unfinished Dickens novel, and it's a mystery, and the audience solves, or the audience votes for who the murderer is at the end
What's
of the show.
interesting in that show is that the high concept is part of the show as opposed to the casting, which seems to be the case with Broadway producers now. Their idea of a high concept is, I'm going to get Katie Holmes in a play, and that stops right there. Whereas there, the concept is in the show. You know, at least it's something.
Now you're an Anglophile. You got to get kicked.
Yeah, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. You know, it's not a major work of musical theater, but actually I was impressed by the score, which I'd heard several times. But some of the songs are really lovely. Mm-hmm. And as you say, it's it's a nice trifling entertainment, but it's not something that is necessarily going to be revived every season or every 10 years. It was kind of nice to see it.
Yeah, yeah. And you get a sense, though, that the cast is having a good time. Cheetah Rivera, Will Chase, Jim Norton as the Master of Ceremonies. I mean, they just seem to be having as much fun as the audience is.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I mean, I think that to me was the joy of it. I'm not as big a fan of the score, but I enjoyed it quite a bit nonetheless. And half of it is just, watching all these, great theater hams. Yeah, not necessarily Hollywood bold-faced names, but like big theater names competing against each other for audience love. I mean, yeah. and doing that kind of openly, whether, it's usually being done sort of covertly. And this time it's literally like,
they're hams playing hams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's total
they can get away with it.
Because it's a second-rate Victorian music hall troupe,
right.
and they're not supposed to be good actors, so
right.
they're having a fun time being second-rate, cheesy kind of actors.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Speaking of which.
You're back on Smash.
I'm back on Smash, as a matter of fact.
I'll drink to that. All right.
You should see how fruity some of my line readings are in the upcoming season. Something else I want to talk about, which is also good, you guys all seem to like, is the revival from Chicago of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Definitive production, Elisabeth?
I don't know if there's such a thing as a definitive production, but this one would get pretty close to a kind of platonic ideal of that show, I guess. Although my personal regret is that it's always done in this naturalistic way for a play that is not naturalistic. And I really would like to see someone like really mess with it, seriously.
Well,
Not while Edward Albee is alive. I don't think he allows people.
He does not
to
allow
mess
it.
with
yeah, and I don't blame him.
go.
I mean, Beckett was the same way. He didn't want people, turning his plays into naturalistic theater.
You enjoyed this very much, right?
Oh, I think it's terrific. I mean, it's a revelation to see a production where George is actually, in many ways the emotional focus of the show, whereas Martha's usually dominating the stage from the beginning to end.
Right.
And Tracy Letts really proved himself as every bit as good an actor as he is a writer, I think.
And it's on your top of your list for the best of 2012, right?
Yeah, it's my #1. It's one of my favorite plays. I first saw it in Washington like a year ago, and I would, as soon as he started talking, as soon as Tracy Letts actually started speaking George's lines, the voice that's been in my head for years when I imagine George, that's it.
Was a very old lady with warts who was very rich.
And I think there was something also that, you know, bringing that kind of meaty Midwestern Chicago thing into it instead of having it be like
New England, starchy as it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's been done. So yeah, I mean, I think it also goes to what Charles was talking about, like the sort of like George is usually easily overwhelmed by Martha, and then, you know, when the tables are turned, that's a big deal. It's almost like a twist. And in this one, it's not so much. I mean,
But does it make complete sense
Wait.
if Martha isn't dominant? That was the one thing to me. I loved him. I thought he was terrific. But my interpretation of the play is she has to be such a big, monstrous, slatternly broad
Self-identification going on right here.
that he would be with her all this time. That they would have that kind of relationship. And that was the one thing that didn't quite make it for me. Amy Martin's a wonderful actress, but I didn't.
thought she was a little too low-key.
horrifying enough to justify
Why
this
does she
relationship.
have to be horrifying?
Because
Martha's grotesque.
Why? No. Why would she be?
just, I mean, when you're going through the whole play, the balance of their relationship, that
Oh,
she's
gee,
this
look at the time.
overbearing woman, and that he has to then, in the course of the play, twist it around to take over. And that, to me, it started out with him on top, and then they didn't have any place
Well,
to go.
maybe then he is the monster. Wouldn't that be interesting? I mean, that's just why does it have to be her?
But I think actually, if you read the play, he's always the one who's in control emotionally. I mean, she's making the noise, but he's the one who is saying, "You've gone too far, Martha." He's the one
Gotta
who's
pull you
saying,
back
Yeah.
from the cliff.
you know,
he's kind of the writer and she's the performer.
It's
And-
just
right.
why is he there?
Exactly. He's
Well,
sort
Susan,
of
Susan and I we're replacing Tracy Letts and Amy Morton after they.
that I would like to see for maybe
But then you
10
would think,
minutes.
why would he be there at all? So
All right, now
I
let's
think he needs her energy, actually.
let's address David Mamet. All right.
it
In other words,
took us 4 minutes to get
let's
there. but
run
we
him
did.
down. All right, David Mamet is considered one, like Edward Albee, one of the great playwrights of the 20th century. And yet, these new plays he's been coming up with, I find unwatchable. I mean, he had a play that lasted 4 or 5 performances, The Anarchist with Patti LuPone and Deborah Winger, which you all hated, and this production of Glengarry Glen Ross, which Elisabeth has the only one who's seen it yet.
What'd you think of it,
is,
Elisabeth?
Is he overrated, David Mamet, Elisabeth?
Well, it depends what David Mamet you're talking about. Well, first, I didn't actually hate The Anarchist.
You didn't.
I thought that was a potentially interesting
Stagger.
play. I know. I didn't like it, but I didn't hate it. I think it's so rare to have a play of ideas on Broadway that it's almost like it just stands out just because of that. So we have to pay attention. It doesn't reward
But we
this kind
can't
of
pay attention because the writing is so turgid.
It is bad, but I think no. But I actually enjoyed reading the play, and it's not and then realized it's not a play.
No, it isn't a play.
It's
That's
not a play.
my problem with the play. Is
He's
that
a
Reading
playwright,
it.
What
so
is
shouldn't
it?
it be a play? What
it's an essay. It's a dialectic
essay.
that he has, you know, put together,
It's
and that's what
a-
he's interested in now.
It's
I
a
think.
kind of Socratic dialogue with himself. It's not a play. There's no dramatic momentum in it, and they do the best they can, but it's not. But you know, so that's why I didn't hate it, because I really hate a cynical, completely bankrupt enterprise that, you know, maybe we'll get to some of them later, but you know, I don't
mean
think that was
Broadway?
it.
But
I don't think that
Glengarry
was
Glen
it.
Ross is a great play. How about this production?
Well, that production is okay.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know, not the best praise. I don't think Pacino actually starts very shaky and gets better and better as he goes along, which is good for him because it works with what happens to the character. Very good coincidence there. But see, my theory about this production is that it's actually an immersive theater production.
What?
Where they put you in the mood of the guys being fleeced on stage by charging $377 for a premium seat and $10 for a ginger ale at the bar, which I sadly now know firsthand. And
Elisabeth.
it is just, if you think of it as a meta production where the audience is fleeced like the guys in the play, I mean, it's just brilliant.
Elizabeth, if David Mamet were here, he would not approve of your lefty French talk.
What, the market?
He's not in the performance art game.
What is your opinion of Mamet, Charles?
Well-
The whole career, the whole.
I think he wrote some great plays. You know, they're in the past now. I think maybe for the past 15 years he hasn't written a worthwhile play. The thing that struck me about this play is that,
The Anarchist.
you know, the anarchist, is that he always was a stylized writer. His dialogue is not naturalistic, but he's completely lost touch with the way human beings speak. I mean, there was not a word in the play that was, remotely resembling human speech.
The other problem is that he also directs himself now. It's just terrible idea. Terrible idea.
Yeah.
Well, especially because he hates actors. I mean, I think that's I mean, like most of his work seems to be about sort of removing actors from the acting process, removing acting from the acting process. It just getting everything slimmed down to the point where it's just David Mamet's thoughts, and I think maybe he achieved that with this play. I mean, I have no trouble with stylized dialogue. I mean, I love stylized dialogue. I might have loved this stylized dialogue if there were anything animating it, but there wasn't. I mean, I feel like it was just completely dehydrated. It had been just reduced to my arguments.
All right, what about this, for the family season, revival of Annie, which I always thought was a jolly, fun, old family musical. Is this done well, this production, Elisabeth?
I think it's done pretty well. I enjoyed it. It feels a little underpopulated at times. There's only 6 or 7 orphans in the sweatshop, and it's just not enough. You can't
enough
get
to make a
anything
sweater.
done.
No,
Like 7
really.
girls. What are you going to get?
One
7
more
girls?
suffering orphans.
I liked it. I mean, I didn't think it was like the greatest production of Annie of all time. I thought it was like a perfectly competent reproduction of what we expect from Annie. I mean, it did not get between me and what I think people reacted a little negatively to it because it is not as love me an Annie. I mean, I don't think she is a love me Annie. I don't think she is like necessarily this,
Charles, does this warm your critics'
I've forgotten Annie already, to be honest. I mean, it was, it was a perfectly pleasant couple of hours in the theater, but it's not a show I have any great affection for. I mean, it's a kid show, and I was never a kid.
I do have a big caveat with that show, actually, which is Katie Finneran gives, I think I described it, I said her performance as Miss Hannigan is completely right and completely wrong. I think she's completely wrong for the part. She's really fun to watch. I had a big smile every time she was on stage, but she's wrong for the part.
She's too young, she's too pretty, she's not
yeah, there's no sense of meanness. There's no sense that she's really a dragon.
Yes.
With those kids. You never get the sense, you never fear for the kids, and you should.
Now, there's a revival of a fine old Clifford Odets play on Broadway called Golden Boy, which you liked quite a bit, Charles.
I thought it was terrific. I mean, Bartlett Sher, I think, really understands Odets in a way, and he can make that language sing again, and sometimes you read it on the page and you think there's no way this is going to sound anything other than completely hokey. And he, picks actors who know how to do it, and I think it was a really vital, exciting production of it. It's not a top drawer Odets, but I thought it was really one of the best productions of the fall season.
But a good old-fashioned, well-made play, right? I mean, really, it's got a good engine and conflict.
Oh, yeah.
You can't argue with a boxing story. I mean, you can do almost anything with a boxing story. A boxing story can be anything. It can be a great right-wing story. It can be a great left-wing story.
I'd love to see what David Mamet does with the boxing story. They just talk at each other from opposite.
Mamet probably owes a lot to Odets, though, in a way. I mean, just in terms of that, in terms of his language, especially his kind of like early period language, just that kind of, that sort of, that combination of like old school New York argot and, something else.
But isn't this old Odette stuff kind of like old lefty commie stuff, Elisabeth?
No, I mean...
Elizabeth? No. Give us your French perspective on this.
You know what's great about it? It's a completely like great lyrical language, and you hear that, and it just has such passion, which is completely devoid from like the new writers now. This is like my completely obsession. But all these like MFA kids, there's just no drive to what they do because they write for grants and for awards, and who cares? They come out of the Yale Drama School and there's nothing driving there, but they are so boring. At least with Odets, you knew what was driving him. It's all on
Passion,
the page.
anger at the world.
Yes, there's none of that now.
It's not come down too far on the playwrights.
Well, you're going to say Detroit, I think. Lisa
Yes.
Moore. That is a
With
play
a
that
few exceptions.
was definitely engaged with what's going on in the country.
Yes, yes.
And
But we have not seen Detroit yet, have we? Is it?
No.
Oh, we have. Oh, I haven't seen it.
Well,
We saw it and it left.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It didn't make it
Charles
to
loved it.
Broadway because it didn't have big stars. And, I think you couldn't
It did
get
have stars, though.
Yeah, but,
Well.
they didn't
David
for whatever
Schwimmer.
reason, they weren't
David
commercial enough,
Schwimmer.
viable, viable for Broadway. And you couldn't get a ticket.
Well,
it sold out at Toronto Playwrights, and that was that, which is a shame because all the new plays on Broadway this season so far have been
and it's
completely
interesting
negligible.
in retrospect because originally it was supposed to be on Broadway. They announced it on Broadway, and then they changed their mind.
Yeah, that's right.
Whoever
They
is
couldn't
there
raise the money.
is.
Jeffrey Richards, who
producer.
decided to bring Chinglish in instead, and wasn't that a great, boon to Broadway? And
I have a soft spot for
Yeah,
oh, really?
Detroit.
Oh.
Well, Jennifer Levin.
I think
Scott, do you want to put in a good? I heard you trying to get in there when Elisabeth was running down these new playwrights. Do you want to put a good word for some of these academic, artificial, dull?
Leah, let's definitely categorize them that way. Let's reframe the dialogue. I mean,
He sounds like one of them reframing
he
the
is one of them.
dialogue.
All right.
Let's reframe the dialogue. Well, okay, let's just not call them the MFA kids. Let's say there are a lot of exciting young playwrights and a lot of exciting plays going on
And-
off Broadway right now. And
I tend to agree with Elisabeth, though. I mean, I drift to the old timers like Edward Albee. I mean, I think
But
every,
you don't
every
see
young
the
playwright
new
should
plays,
watch.
Michael.
Well, rare occasions I go to it. But you sit there and you see Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and you want all of these young MFA playwrights to go and realize that every scene should have tension and should crackle, and there should be two people going up against each other, and you should just keep ratcheting the tension, ratcheting.
well, go downtown to Soho Rep and see a play that has a title that is way too long for me to repeat on this show because it would take another taping to get through it. It starts, "We are proud to present a presentation about the Herero of Namibia."
We are proud to present a presentation about the Herero of Namibia, formerly known as Southwest Africa, from the German Südwest Africa, between the years 1884 and 1915.
If you want tension, but a tension that is kind of not bound up in the voice, I think the way that we're talking about, then check out this show. It's about an ensemble of actors who are trying to put together a theater piece about a genocide, and very quickly get in over their head. But the playwright there, Jackie Sibley's Drury, she's about 30. She lives in Brooklyn, and this is her first big show downtown, and it's exciting. It's another way to create tension in the theater.
A good old play that you liked a lot, Charles, revived very well off Broadway is The Piano Lesson, August Wilson play. You thought this was a terrific production.
I really did, and I think when you see an August Wilson play done that well, you sort of feel like a lot of playwrights today are writing very puny plays.
Yeah.
I mean, the majesty of his language, the arc of his narratives, and how each character has a fully realized story behind it. I mean, I think that's one of his best plays in this production. I think it's really one of the finest. Not major. Chuck Cooper, you probably
Wonderful
know.
actor.
He's a musical
He's
theater
great.
actor.
Wonderful
He's
actor.
terrific. Rosalind Ruff.
She's fantastic.
Is, the female lead, and she has this intense presence, but very still. And the two brothers.
Brandon Durden and Jason
Yes.
Durden, I think.
Who are also very terrific. I think across the board it was
And the
well
director?
cast. Ruben Santiago Hudson, who
Right. Who's done a lot of
who
himself.
knows from August Wilson.
We haven't talked about Dead Accounts.
Well, Dead Accounts, I hear, is a terrific play by my good friend Teresa Rebeck, and I think that's all we need to say about Dead Accounts.
Where are you hearing that
Scott.
from?
You have
Wait,
anything
hold
more
on.
to
I'm
say
hearing
on Dead
something
Accounts?
in my.
Dead Accounts stars Katie Holmes. Is Katie Holmes, now that she's free of Tom Cruise, is she a major theatrical presence?
Let's see. How'd I answer that? Is that to suggest that she would have been less of a major theatrical presence if Tom Cruise had been there,
She was
on
with
her
Tom
leg?
Cruise when he had the, Miller
I would have
plays.
seen that play. I would love that play.
Right. You're not a big fan of Dead Accounts, I take it.
No,
Teresa
I mean,
Rebeck's play.
I feel like. Well, first of all, is it true I'm not on Smash next season?
You're not on Smash.
That's,
so
I definitely have nothing. I have
Teresa
nothing.
Rebeck isn't writing
I don't think
it
she's on
Okay,
Smash.
well,
She's not on
oh,
Smash
that's
anymore
true.
either.
That's true. We're both not on Smash. All right. Am I going to be in any of Teresa Rebeck's upcoming plays? No. All right. Well then, I think Dead Accounts to me read like a play whose original title was Tyler Perry's Teresa Rebeck's Dead Accounts. Like it felt like to me just like one of those sort of. I don't know, it's just like one step away from church circuit inspirational theater or something. I mean, like there's something about the easy kind of, division of the country into God-fearing, wholesome rubes and horrible coastal plutocrat vampires that I just find kind of stupid, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I just feel like, I thought it was a stupid play very brilliantly performed.
By Norbert Leo Butz.
You know, I mean, who can obviously do anything. And I thought Katie Holmes did a fine job in a role she's not right for.
Yeah. Charles, you look. I see the look of disdain on your
Well,
face.
I feel it's a very negligible piece of writing that is only on Broadway because of Katie Holmes, obviously. And I felt she has bad management. It's such a thankless role. She spends most of the time whining. She has one speech maybe. You know, complaining about I'm stuck at home with my parents and, you know,
And I have to lose
upbraiding
weight.
her brother. I mean, I just felt it was just, you know, increasingly we're seeing these very small scale,
Yep.
you know, really uninteresting plays on Broadway simply for reasons that, you know, they can get a star to do them. But, you know, who are the managers advising these stars?
Well, I think part of that is because you cannot put a, this is a bit off, but if you'll follow my point, you can't put a Katie Holmes type, let's say, into a play like The Piano Lesson that requires really big, serious, meaty actors. And most of these movie stars they slip in have to go into these puny plays, which don't require the kind of operatic performances that you have to give in a great Albee play or a great piano
yes
lesson.
and
Does
no, I
Katie
think.
Holmes sell tickets?
No,
Well, if it's a new play, I think the more it looks like an existing television script, the safer it feels to the management.
Or,
I don't know.
I mean, Jessica Chastain is not in a new play. She is in
The Heiress.
The Heiress, which is a very solid play. So it's not, you know. And then you do have some, you know, screen actors who have really thankless screen parts and flourish on stage.
Yeah.
So it can happen in very difficult parts. So.
All right, we got to wrap it up. I want to ask you guys, though, the absolute worst thing that you have seen, that you saw in the fall, that almost made you want to resign as a drama critic, that drove you out of the theater. Scott, anything where you just sit there and you think, I cannot go on with this life anymore?
Lay it on a little thick there, Michael.
I mean, I think
Did you bring the razor blades?
there were certainly moments during some of the musical numbers in Scandalous, I think, where
Kathy Lee Gifford,
certain
masterpiece.
although, you know, something like that is so wonderfully awful that you know. There's nothing like, you know, being, you know, watching fake Irish immigrants dance around for no reason I could actually discern, and singing "Hey little lassie, come show me your assie," because they, you know, they're Irish and so they're drunk and they're on a steamship, so that's what happens. Yeah, the moments like that, you know, I don't know if you want to kill yourself or just stand up and say thank you because my review is written and.
It's time for Charles, the thing that almost drove you out of the profession.
You know, I didn't even have fun at that. It sounded. I wish I had your experience. I thought I didn't find it, you know, campily bad enough. I think The Anarchist really was the low point for me. I mean,
That was the max.
especially since, you know, this play was only on Broadway because of this man's name. These actors, fine actors, are doing it only because of, you know, it's a Mamet play, and everybody. I think it was an embarrassment to everyone in the theater, including the audience and the ushers.
And you, Elisabeth, the one that made you almost put down your
The
pen,
one
and
that
bury your head in your
The
hands?
most recent one, so that's the one that comes to mind, is Trojan Women at BAM, which was based on Euripides and rewritten, directed by Anne Bogart, who's a kind of big figure of the experimental scene.
Yeah.
But her problem is that she always works with her own company, the CT company, and they generate the text, and they're actors and they cannot write. Some of them can barely act as well, but they can't write. So you have, I believe, a very gifted director working with crap text, where those Trojan women are saying things like, they destroy Troy. And I am thinking,
See, gets
yes,
right
they
to the
did
point.
Just say they destroy
poetry.
Troy.
Destroy Troy and
They destroy Troy.
We're
And Bogart
lassies
is great
dancing
when
off
she
our
works
assies. This
with.
is
I thought her
brilliant.
Dead Man's Cell Phone, the Sarah role play, was wonderful. She's good when she works with a good text.
Yeah.
Actors should not write their own things.
Right.
I want to say that every show that opened in the fall, except Annie, will be closed by the end of this month. So whether they were limited runs or they failed, they'll be closed. So a whole bunch of theaters are opening up for all new things.
Right, but let's end on a high note. What are you guys looking forward to in the spring? Elizabeth?
Well, speaking of Hollywood stars, I'm really looking forward to A Cat on a Hot Tin Roof with
With
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson,
in
yeah.
January.
Scott, what are you looking forward to?
I'm excited about Matilda. I've heard good things about that.
Musical.
Revolting
Yes.
children. I can't wait.
Right, yeah.
The musical coming in from London, based on the Roald Dahl book.
Right, and also, you know, just things that are. I'm pretty delighted with what's going on Broadway and even off Broadway.
Something
right
off Broadway that's going to catch your interest?
I actually can't. Nothing comes immediately to mind, but because I'm
How
forgetting.
could you forget the Jesse Eisenberg and
the
Vanessa Redgrave collaboration? That blows
Yes,
my
Jesse
mind.
Eisenberg and Vanessa Redgrave will be collaborating on something.
What do they do?
I don't know about that. I have no idea if that's.
It's a Jesse Eisenberg
I was
play
not
in which she
wild
co-stars
about
with
it.
Vanessa Redgrave in a tiny little at the Cherlin Theater or
at the
something like
Cherlin.
that.
Let's
or
hope that actor can
Rattlestick or
write.
some crazy.
Yeah, let's
place
hope
like
that actor can write.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll
He's
go.
already written a play.
Charles, you're looking forward to?
I'm actually looking forward to Belleville, the Amy Herzog play. That maybe you should skip it, Elisabeth. It's a really exciting new play, very entertaining.
Well, here's hoping for lots of fun-spirited, big plays in the spring. No more puny ones with movie stars. Although that said, I'm looking forward to Lucky Guy starring Tom Hanks because I like Nora Ephron, and I knew Mike McAlery, the columnist that it's based on, and I think it could be quite an interesting play that captures the end of an era of
Horrible
newspaper
Nora
news.
Ephron.
What?
Horrible Nora Ephron. I
She's dead.
cannot
How can you
stand
say
her.
that? Why are you? She's dead. Be kind.
She's created 1,000 monsters with her horrible rewriting of the codes of romantic comedy. I blame her for all the romantic comedy crap that is flooding our screens. All goes back to Nora Ephron. Lion ass
Well.
for nothing.
Like everyone else in New York, I was one of her best friends, so I'm deeply offended.
Oh, God.
Nora.
Rest in peace, Nora Ephron. I'm
Only
looking
on
forward to
Theater
Lucky
Talk.
Guy. All right. Thanks a lot. Elisabeth Vincentelli from the New York Post, Charles Isherwood, veteran drama critic of the New York Times, and Scott Brown.
As opposed to old drama critic at the New York.
And Scott Brown from New York Magazine. Thanks a lot for being our guest tonight on Theater Talk.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Alan S. Gordon Foundation, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.